Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape! No! Planet where apes evolved from men.
The only good human is a dead human!
Apes! Do not want war! God damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Welcome back to Talking Apes. It is day 6, I'm pretty sure. I may fuck that up. Dylan, it's day 6, right?
Yeah, we've watched 5 movies before now. So.
Oh, thank you, thank God. That's what I counted in my head, and I'm like, but oh, God, it's a math. I haven't taken a math class in many years, so the idea of it in my head is scary and intimidating. But tonight, oh boy, we are going to be talking about what I think is the first bad movie that we've actually discussed in this series. I think many people will disagree. There are some people that think every movie they made after the first Planet of the Apes is garbage, which I guess is, if you have that opinion, and I'm sure you have some kind of valid reason, fine, whatever. We obviously don't share those opinions. I love all of the original classic Apes movies to some degree. You know, Battle obviously least of all, as we talked about last time. But I think they all kind of hold up as entertaining in one way or another. And that was it. It was all self-contained and shit. Then you had the two TV series following that in the 70s, both of which we'll talk about in some regard at some point. Maybe during this series later, maybe not. Maybe at some other not too distant point. We'll see. But then you have this long gap of Fox kind of going, well, should we or should we not? And there was obviously a lot of back and forth between that my good friend Dylan McCandless, Super DM64, also joining me, will tell you about. So Dylan, educate the kids while they get out their copies of 2001's Planet of the Apes, directed by Tim Burton, the first attempt to bring back the franchise since Battle for the Planet of the Apes theatrically, and it's directed by Tim Burton. So tell us why.
Well, and I'm just sort of skimming Wikipedia here, so I don't have all the details.
Do you love how long I stalled to give you time to read?
Yeah, and I wasn't reading.
You're such a failure on every level, you know that? Just like this movie. You and this movie have so much in common, and that's why you like it more than I do. And that's why you fail, as Yoda said.
Apparently they were trying to get this movie made as early as the late 1980s.
A bad time to try to do anything except snort cocaine.
At this point, they were trying to continue the original franchise. It wasn't supposed to be a reboot. Looks like they wanted Rick Baker to do the prosthetic makeup and Danny Elfman to do the score, which I know Danny Elfman did wind up doing the 2001
Off the back of what? Batman? Darkman? All the Man movies he did at the time?
I suppose, yeah. And Rick
so they decided
Baker,
if he can do movies about men, he can surely do movies about apes.
And I want to say that Rick Baker wound up doing the makeup for 2001. I don't quite remember if he did. That
I mean,
sense.
like, bro, you have the computer, you have the internet. Like, look it up and shit, son.
Yeah, but I haven't gotten to that part of the article yet. So right now, I don't know if he did or not.
You're gonna learn. You're gonna discover it, like you have everything else. So.
If he did, though, that makes sense, because one thing that I don't think even this movie's greatest detractors can take away from it is that it has probably the best prosthetic makeup work in the franchise. Like, holy shit.
Well, by the sheer virtue of when it was made, sure, I guess. I will always prefer the designs of the original characters, though.
They could have continued enhancing the effects in the original franchise if they hadn't been stupid and kept cutting the budget.
Realistically, what I think they should have done... This is such a weird movie anyway, we'll get to it, but realistically what I would have liked is just for them to have continued anyway. Like, really, they should have done it sooner than 2001, they should have brought back Roddy McDowall in some capacity, and they should have just moved on from where Battle left off and done something else in the far future. I think. Because maybe that would have been wrapped up in too much continuity, but I feel like you could have even just maybe done a soft reboot from there. Maybe that's something that's more in line with how Hollywood works now. I don't know. But this... The Tim Burton version comes out of a long line of questioning of, like, well, if you're going to do Planet of the Apes now, what the fuck does that mean? And in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like... So initially their mindset was, let's continue it, right? That's when they wanted Rick Baker in, and they wanted to bring back Roddy McDowall. Let's continue on from where we left off, sort of.
Well, let's see here. Actually, it turns the Roddy McDowall one is not the same production. I've just realized from reading this more thoroughly. So what happened was the original one that they were wanting to do got canceled because there was some new studio executives took over, and there were some creative differences.
And that one was supposed to be a continuation of the original series, no?
Yes. Later on, apparently Peter Jackson pitched an idea for one.
Huh, I had no idea he ever had tried to do anything with Apes.
It says here Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh pitched their own idea about the apes going through a renaissance. And it was that idea in which Roddy McDowall was supposed to play kind of a Da Vinci-type character, only an ape.
See, if that would have been a continuation of the original franchise, that would have been great, because they're in this primitive culture in that particular aesthetic. So that totally would have worked. Like, just stick them in the future post-battle, and just do a story from there, because we already know that's a different future anyway, at least theoretically. But after that, the idea swung more towards, scratching the original franchise altogether and just starting from the ground up. I am familiar with the Oliver Stone version that was in the 90s,
yes,
but there's stuff before that.
Fast forward to 93, and apparently Sam Raimi and Oliver Stone were both being considered as possible directors.
Oliver Stone didn't like the original series, though, and he pitched a more kind of like... It was supposed to be a bit comedic, a little bit satirical, which I don't think is that far off. Like, the original movie is a sci-fi adventure. Charlton Heston kind of plays it as a straight action hero, but it is very satirical. I think that's Rod Serling just being him, and I think part of the issue with attempts to do this franchise later is walking the line of what elements of the first movie they're trying to recapture. This is, by this I mean 2001, is in my opinion the worst example of anything. Trying to do that. It takes like the worst directions and goes in the absolute worst places you can imagine with what the original movie sort of set out to do. And I think what they did afterwards in 2009, when they initially started coming up with the idea for Rise, they went, okay, well, we'll just kind of do what would make sense to do, to like start from the ground up, go from this concept from the beginning of it, and sort of explore it from there. But anyway, so point is, there was so much bullshit and people trying to vie in with a million different ideas before they finally got to Tim Burton. But how did Tim Burton get involved? What led to them going, all right, Tim, you're the one who's going to bring it back?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. This goes way deeper than I ever realized, Bill. They were trying to get this thing made all throughout the 90s. I mean, you were familiar with Oliver Stone being involved, and as I said...
His version was also supposed to be R-rated, with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it as well. Or an Arnold Schwarzenegger type, maybe, more specifically.
Sam Raimi was so in talk sport. But, I mean, there are so many other names involved with this thing. Like, Chris Columbus at one point was going to do it, but then he dropped off to do Jingle All the Way.
He dropped off to go discover America.
James Cameron was involved at one point, but I think that was just a producer thing. At one point, they offered it to Roland Emmerich. Thank God that didn't happen.
God, no. I would have preferred, if I had to pick one, and you're going to not like this at all because of the conversations we've had about The Rock being in Planet of the Apes. I would have preferred an Oliver Stone Schwarzenegger 90s one, because at the very least, that would have been the most, like, interesting. Like, maybe it wouldn't have been good. I don't think any version of where their heads were in the 90s would have been good for them trying to bring back apes. Maybe if Peter Jackson had done it in the 80s, that would have worked. But I don't think that where their headspace was, it would have done well. But Oliver Stone, with Schwarzenegger as the astronaut type, although he wasn't really the astronaut type, it was more of like a 12 Monkeys type of thing. Like, he was supposed to be like traveling into the far future to find a cure for like the last woman on Earth who was pregnant or whatever. She was sick. I don't remember the exact details, but he ends up in the apes world, and they don't put him in a prison. I don't think they kind of like, he tries to help their society to like create the antidote. I don't remember. It's been a while, but they had some weird ideas. I would have liked to have seen that though above Roland Emmerich putting like John Cusack in a fucking loincloth and having him, like be a divorced dad protecting his kids from apes.
I guess at the end of the day, we're lucky we wound up with Tim Burton, because they also offered it to Michael Bay at one point.
In the 90s, again, I don't know, man. Again, I think you definitely like this movie. We're going to be commentating on a lot more than me. I just think out of all those, like there's a million bizarre directions they could have gone in, and this is one of the more mediocre.
And then they tried to get Peter Jackson again, but he wasn't interested anymore because Roddy McDowall had died.
Well, right. He wanted to do a continuation, I think. Which, again, if they would have done that in the 80s, that would have worked. But in the 90s, that doesn't. It's like, at that point, you're going to have to reset.
Okay. So apparently, what happened was the last guy who wrote a pass at this script, because that's another saga, that script caught the attention of Tim Burton, who was hired in February of 2000. So that's what happened. Tim Burton caught that script and was interested in doing it because he didn't want to do a sequel or a remake. He liked the idea that it was doing Planet of the Apes, but doing it differently, and so he came on at that point. And then they made the movie.
Which script? The Oliver Stone one?
No, it's in 1999, this guy called William Broyles Jr. Apparently he originally turned down writing the script, but then decided to sign on when he found out that he could have an extensive amount of creative control. And then he wrote, apparently, the version that we're about to watch, and that's what caught Tim Burton's attention.
So their whole idea was just go crazy with it, see what you can do, because they couldn't get a concept off the ground. And they didn't seem really married to any particular vision. Like, it wasn't like they were trying to maintain any semblance of, like, keep it like the original, or keep it like the last one, or keep it like the TV show. Like, it was just like, make sure there are apes in it, and make sure it's kind of sci-fi.
And apparently Tim Burton didn't enjoy the process of making it, though, because later on, after the film had been released, it was financially successful, but Fox decided not to make another one anyway. But even though most of the actors were interested in reprising their roles, Tim Burton was asked if he would be interested in doing another one, and he said, "I'd rather jump out a window." So, obviously, he did not have a good time.
We'll talk about Tim Burton when we start the movie. But how do you feel about like that approach of we're not really gonna tie this too directly to the original concept. We're gonna just go crazy with this and just kind of go out there to try and bring this back and make it viable in some way to a modern audience. How do you feel about that?
I think it was the right call, honestly. I don't know if the people who were involved would have been successful in making a continuation.
I'm not even saying like a continuation, like even just a straight up remake, like that's just more faithful to what the original was like.
Because as much of a mixed bag as this movie is, I think it would be even more offensive to fans if it was supposed to be part of the original series.
Yeah, I guess. I think it's weirdly faithful in some ways and frustratingly not faithful in other ways. And I'm not even like Planet of the Apes is not married to that original movie anyway. Like, we've reviewed the original book on our podcast, The Demons from Outer Space, and that book is very different from the original movie in a lot of ways. And we've talked about the various things that have been pulled from it in other movies while we've been doing these. This one, in particular, has some really interesting elements that are pulled from that, and that's a good place to look for ways to make it different. So I'm with you. I also think that was the right approach, to do something really different with the concept. However, there's such an ego attached to all this, you know, like to the 90s production of these big blockbusters, you know. There's this big ego of like how you do it and how certain people come on board. And of all of them, Tim Burton seems to be attached to the most of that. Like, if you hear about how he worked on Kevin. I wanted to talk about this when we started the movie, so I will save it for then. But
I will disagree with you a little bit, in that I do think that all future Apes films are a bit slavish to the original film. This movie attempts to do something a little different and actually borrows some elements from the book that I didn't realize it was borrowing until we read the book, and it wasn't successful because the movie is so much more iconic now than the book, and so that's why when they rebooted it again, Rise and Dawn and all that, they're taking more cues from the original series of films, and they've been working better.
Well,
for
it's
that.
a straight reboot where they take the basic concept and do their own thing with it, but it is more based in the original movie. Yeah,
it's a similar situation to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit is so iconic that most people don't even realize that it was based off of a book. And the guy who wrote the book liked the movie so much better than the book he had written that he then went back and rewrote a version of the book to be closer to the movie.
Well, no, didn't he make it so that like Roger woke up in the sequel and like it turned out that the original book was a nightmare, and that his real life was pretty much the movie?
It was something like that, yeah, because the original book is super dark. Like, at the end of it, you find out that Roger Rabbit really did kill the guy. But,
I've been meaning to read the original book. Have you?
I haven't read it, no, but I know a lot about it.
Yeah, I watched a video on it a while ago, so I know things about it as well. But Dylan, this movie is so long, and this is a video game I want to play after this. So let's get into this, shall we? We hope you've had ample time to get it out. So get Planet of the Apes 2001 to 000, because we are gonna press play. Dylan, you're ready, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So let's press play. In 3, a 2, a 1, a play. So Dylan, I don't really like Tim Burton. Number one. So, and here's why. I think sometimes he gets a project that his vision really works for, and it turns out something really great. I think Ed Wood is a good example of that. I think the original Batman is mostly a good example of that. I think elements of Return... I cannot discredit that the original Batman doesn't have really good elements of it, but it's just not something that I particularly love. But it is definitely, objectively, a solid film. See, look at the credits here, super generic. We'll get to that, though. So... Vision-wise, matches up with a gritty reboot of Batman. Vision-wise, matches up with Ed Wood. What else has he done that I kind of like? I kind of like Mars Attacks. I will never watch it again, but I kind of like Mars Attacks, and his vision definitely matches up with that. God damn it, what else have I seen of his? But by and large, I don't hate Edward Scissorhands. By and large, though, his aesthetic overpowers the story in his movies for me, and I just don't get what he's getting at, or more than that, I don't care. And this movie in particular,
it's interesting because this movie I don't think really has that much of Tim Burton's aesthetic.
That is part of the problem, Dylan. All right, Dylan. So what's your overall opinion of this movie?
Well, as of right now, I'd just like to say that over these quotes you were hearing probably my favorite part of the movie, which is the score by Danny Elfman, which combines sort of that jungle thing that the original series had going on, but with a bit more of an orchestral flair. And the end result, I think, is pretty fantastic. It might be like my second favorite Apes score, although I'm not sure. I'd have to compare it against Dawn, because Dawn has a really good score as well.
I think Dawn has a better score than this movie.
But it's amazing. Anyway, but my overall opinion of this movie, I think it's just a really mixed bag. I mean, obviously I have some nostalgia for it. This was the first Apes movie that I actually saw. I saw it in theaters, as a matter of fact. But I think what we're presented with is something that had the potential to be really, really good, and it flounders in a few places. There's an interesting version of the Apes world presented. Aesthetically, the apes look amazing. The ape society is actually a little bit more reflective of real apes than it is than the version that was presented in the Bull novel. Here we have the chimps being absolutely psychotic, and the gorillas being strong but docile. These are things that are much more reflective of actual ape culture.
Yeah, this is not a remake of the movie. This is just another adaptation of the original novel when you think about it.
Exactly. But ultimately, I think there are a laundry list of mistakes that hold this movie back, and we're about to be introduced to the first one. Who on earth's idea was it to cast Marky Mark as...
What's your opinion of Tim Burton as a director, before we get into Marky Mark?
Tim Burton as a director, again, kind of hit and miss. I like Batman '89 a hell of a lot more than you do, but I think he started out really great, and he's sort of lost it more recently. And this might be the start of that, but he hasn't been doing so well in the 2000s. But the Burton of the 80s and 90s was a different story, I think. And you compare Batman '89 or Ed Wood or something like that to Alice in Wonderland. It's not. There is no comparison. You know?
Yeah, I didn't like that. I saw that in theaters. That was not something I wanted to make my life about.
I think the moment when he really just fell off the rails and hasn't been able to recover is probably Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I can't think of an earlier
that's also
example.
not a good movie. Oof. That's one of those movies where his aesthetic does not work. You know?
Yeah.
See, okay, can I explain why I don't really like this movie? Because
Certainly.
I think at the end of the day, it's too generic of an action movie to really be offensive, and it's too, or it doesn't have enough to do with the original Planet of the Apes franchise for me to really care enough about it from that front. So when I bitch about it, or not even when I bitch about it, because I don't even feel like I've done that so much as just go, I don't like it. It's more so just because it doesn't really make me care, and my reaction to it is more kind of like indifference than any kind of like, oh, they really pissed all over this franchise, because they didn't. It was done. Like, it was long done. If anything, I think what this movie is more disappointing in is that this is all we got out of all those years of scrapped weird ideas. I wanted something weirder. You know, we've had this kind of conversation before with projects like this that kind of try something a little different with a well-known franchise, you know? Maybe it's really weird conceptually, but in execution, it's a little bit like kind of plain and by the numbers. I thought Shin Godzilla had that problem a little bit, where it was like, I thought this could have been 10 times weirder. A lot of people disagreed with me on that. And this one, I think, is more not debatably like that. I think this is like this should have been more Tim Burton, if anything. Like, his aesthetic absolutely works with Planet of the Apes, 100%. He is definitely somebody you should have tried that concept with, at least visually, at the very least visually. And if you give him a good script, I think you're off and running. But I think that's something that was missing here. You know, I don't.
Well, this is kind of reminiscent of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Holy shit! Ultimately, that's where I think the movie fails. I think all the failures are in the script. Things
well, I think it's all
downhill.
in this bullshit. Like, this guy, it's all super generic. Like, this guy doesn't hate humanity. He doesn't fucking, like, have any sense of vision or scope. He's training a bunch of monkeys in space. This feels more... I don't know what this feels like, but it feels so of the time to me, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you're going to remake Planet of the Apes and you're going to have a guy get put into that situation, you want it to feel a little of the time, so that way it comments a bit on where we're at. But you don't want it to feel generic and by the numbers and like you could be watching any number of, again, summer blockbusters, and that's how I feel here. And I don't want to feel that way watching Planet of the Apes. This does not feel distinct to me. You know, I feel like I could be watching Starship Troopers right now, or Fantastic Four 2005.
The movie though that's filmed in the year 2000. This was the Dude, Where's My Car era. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like I could be watching Dude, Where's My Car right now.
This is a time in which I don't think American cinema was in the best place. You know what I mean? Like,
nothing in America was in the best place at this point.
Especially the action movies.
There's an Arnold Schwarzenegger terrorist movie that came out. I think it came out in 2003, but it came out around this era that really bombed. but apparently it was like that was a turning point for like what you do with an action movie. Like it was apparently like the turning point for like R-rated action movies. I don't know why we're talking about this now, but point is, you're right. Movies were in rough shape at this point because people didn't know what audiences wanted, or more than that, what they could get away with that would make its money back. Southland Tales, do you remember that?
You know what the problem was? People were too damn happy, and after you're happy for a long time, it's hard to get invested in things like this.
Well, it's weird. It's especially weird you're saying that about a movie that was made in 2001 or released in 2001 anyway.
Well, that's what I was about to say. The thing that, in my opinion, sort of breathed new life into the action genre, as horrible as it is to say, is kind of 9/11, because then we get into the sort of post-9/11.
I don't even know if I necessarily agree with that. I don't think action took any kind of like. I think if anything, storytelling maybe took an upscale, but I think if anything, like what we were motivated by, you know, was just clearer. You know, like, because in stuff like this, it's just like what everybody's doing and why they're doing it. It's like, who gives a fuck? Like, oh, this guy misses his family. Well, whatever. He's off in space training monkeys. Maybe he shouldn't have put himself in that situation. Fuck him. You know, like, what's his name? Davidson. Like, do you give any semblance of a fuck about any of this? Why are they training the monkeys to fly these fucking tampon spaceships?
See, all of that is neat. I think it raises questions. The problem is I don't give a fuck about Marky Mark.
Yeah, I do think as a protagonist he just doesn't work. I don't even know if it's his fault. I think it's partially his fault. You need somebody like a Chuck Heston in there. You need somebody with a personality to come in there and be that. And he doesn't have a personality. He's a face and a body.
I don't think he had been acting very long at this point, had he? This is the first thing I ever saw him.
He definitely couldn't have been. This is 2001. This is like, you know, he just had his pants around his ankles, you know? It's weird they didn't put him in the loincloth in this movie. He totally would have been cool with it.
That's the problem. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I mean, you watch Mark Wahlberg in a movie now, and he's a lot better than this. I mean...
Yeah, I saw Transformers 4. He was great in that. No, he's just...
easily the best thing in Transformers 4. Holy shit. He's the one.
You don't like Kelsey Grammer? Yeah, I guess he's better than Kelsey Grammer is in that movie.
Kelsey Grammer's not in that movie enough to turn the tide.
He's definitely better than his weird pedophile son-in-law or whatever.
At least Marky Mark is there, scene by scene, breathing a little bit of life into the material.
Why would you put that jacket on? That's not a good jacket. Makes you look like you're wearing a fucking life jacket. And if we've learned anything, it's that life jackets are just the absolute way to not get pussy.
Well, it's a spacesuit. It's not supposed to look good, though. It's just supposed to keep you, alive.
Yeah, but this is like the far future where we're putting monkeys in $1 million space equipment. So, like, why can't we have cool-looking stuff, you know?
You don't think they're spending $1 million on a hammer, do you?
Look, he's got little stars on his collar. Like, clearly they're thinking in some sense about aesthetics. I'm thinking maybe not a giant poofy jacket.
Those stars are just there to denote rank. It has nothing to do with aesthetics. Real space travel isn't concerned with aesthetics, Bill. It's concerned with not dying. The fact
Never send a monkey to do a man's job. Do you think that sets up a thematic thrust for the film, Dylan?
I suppose. I do like the idea of having a protagonist who interacts with the apes on a daily basis before going to the Planet of the Apes, because it gives them a bit more of a basis to be like, this is fucked up, you know what I mean?
The only thing I think is in any way interesting about his character so far is that he's decided to risk his own life to save the chimp after he's been lost in this wormhole. So I think that's interesting.
And linking the astronauts with the creation of the Planet of the Apes is a nice idea. I don't think that's executed necessarily very well, but it's a nice idea, you know.
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, I think all of that's fine. I think just what kills all of it is it's just so generically executed, you know, and it's so uninteresting and it doesn't feel fresh. It should. You know, the idea of doing a version of Planet of the Apes where it literally is this far-off planet where we are still responsible for the apes taking over. I think it's also just because what happened to the people isn't all that interesting. Where'd that come from?
Well, that electrical storm out there seems to be creating some sort of a time.
Is that from them in the future when their ship goes down on the planet of the apes?
Yeah, because that's the same transmission that Marky Mark finds later in the movie.
Okay, that's what I just thought. All right, cool. I like that idea as well.
And now that I've read,
Oh, there you go. Let's see
I've
what
read
year it is in this version.
Now that I've read the Pierre Bull novel, the end of this movie actually makes somewhat more sense. It doesn't make any sense why Thade is the Lincoln, but
yeah, that doesn't make sense. But like the idea of it is the same. You know, apes have just risen up on Earth as they did on that planet.
Well, he said something when they were on the spaceship that the apes they were training had been genetically enhanced. So, assumedly, the apes on Earth would have undergone some
I
similar
must have
experiments.
missed that. I didn't see that.
I never caught that when I was a kid either, but thanks to these subtitles,
I've only seen this about, I think twice before we were sitting down to do this, and it was a while ago when I was a kid, and I was a huge purist of the original films and the TV show, and I didn't like this at all because I thought it so severely missed the point of the original movie in particular. But more than that, it doesn't have the sense of drama or danger or awe of the original movie, and I don't think it's because we've seen this shit before. I don't think it's that we've seen a guy, powerless in a world full of apes trying to kill him because he's advanced. I think it's just because the filmmakers didn't approach that element of it with the same care, and maybe where are their minds though? So if it's the failure of just we don't really feel like we're enough in Marky Mark's head or how this experience affects him, where are their heads then? Is it just in crafting the ape society? I guess, right? I guess that's the element of this movie that's really oh, all right, that's really bizarre and intricate.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think does work about the movie is the ape society that we see. It's different from the original society, but it's got its own sort of nuances.
We'll pick it apart when we get there. Obviously, we're not there yet.
Later on in the film, they run into some of those scarecrow things from the original movie, and this movie actually gives us an explanation for what they are in this universe.
We're hunting vampires. Oh shit, they're hunting vampires.
Was that Jeff Bridges? No, it's not Jeff Bridges.
I do like that we just kind of get dropped into the middle of this here. It's fairly well paced. But again, if anything, I just feel like I don't know anything about Marky Mark, and I don't feel any sense of, that's a terrible reveal. It wasn't a bad shot, but I feel no sense of tension. We're 16 minutes in, too. It's not even like we haven't had time to build up tension. I really think this movie failed as putting you in the shoes of a guy going through a dramatic situation. And I think that leads to really feeling the impact of how cool and interesting the ape society is, just not having the impact that Burton wants. Maybe that's why he was so frustrated with the way the movie came out, What elements do you think...
One thing that this movie went through the trouble of doing, and I think it shows, and it's one of the things that I commend them on, the people in the ape makeup were all trained by choreographers on how to move like actual apes. They'll run around on all fours, and they'll do all kinds of ape-like movements that you didn't see the original actors do in the original series. They all just sort of walked around and were very Shakespearean behind their monkey masks. In this movie, they move like apes, and that's always something that I appreciated.
They're also built more like apes, or they're so real apes. I mean, they're supposed to structurally look more.
They clearly got shorter people to play the chimps and big muscular people to play the gorillas.
Yeah, and big kind of fat lanky guys to play the orangutans. Paul Giamatti was perfectly cast in this. We'll get to him, though. Michael Clarke Duncan, obviously, as well. He's one of the standouts in this. I think Michael Clarke Duncan is infinitely better than Tim Roth is. I like the idea of Tim Roth's performance. I don't like how it actually comes off. I know you feel a little differently about it, and I get conceptually why it's good. I just don't enjoy watching it.
It's almost like compared to what we had in the original series, it's almost like evil Caesar in a way. We wouldn't see a chimp in that light again until Koba. Thade is kind of Koba before Koba.
I like that there is a good gorilla in this, because there's kind of two, because Michael Clarke Duncan is kind of an anti-hero, or just a conflicted warrior, I guess.
Well, what happens is he's following orders because he's a soldier, but at the end of the movie, when he realizes that Thade's family has been lying to everybody, he's like, fuck you, dude. Like, the gorillas in this movie, in this version of the universe, are the most morally upstanding of any of the apes. Again, this is based more off real gorillas and their sort of docile nature, in that they're explained to be super spiritual. Like, they're the most religious apes in this version of the universe, as opposed to the orangutans.
I really like the armor. I really like Ape City. I like the surrounding. See, it looks like the original. See, this part looks like the original. I mean, it looks like there's kind of a forbidden zone kind of thing going on. You know, there's wasteland surrounding the tropical part. But
I especially like Duncan's armor, which is a modern update of the Aldo.
All of the armor is really cool. Yeah, it's all really good. Again, aesthetically, all this is perfect. I even think the architecture of this, it's a really good mix of, oh man, I like that there. Oh wow, I can't believe I didn't even notice that there are people pulling the cart. That's great.
Yeah, they went for more treehouse structures here, so it's kind of like a combination of what we saw in the original film with what we saw in Battle.
I was gonna say it looks kind of like Battle, but like exaggerated to look more like the original. Like, that's really cool.
There's a lot more variation in ape clothing for the ones who aren't soldiers. Which makes a little bit more sense.
Well, it's more clear that this society is a mishmash of people and just an upsprawl. Wow, that's something you've not seen in the original.
Yeah, I love the organ grinder monkey.
Because clearly, it's just so clear that the relationship between humans and apes is so different in this universe. I think that's another thing that really falls down, is the relationship between humans and apes just doesn't make any sense in this.
I like that we get to see Ape City too, as Marky Mark is being pulled in, and we get to see different apes doing different things.
I have problems with this kind of thing. We see it a lot in modern movies where you can tell directors are flaunting their vision in front of you, maybe a little too much, where it's like, oh, look at how intricate and weird I made this look. But
I think this is a bit before that became too much of a cliche, and also I think it works because in the original film, because of the limitations, you didn't get to see as much of it as you would have liked to, so it's nice that this movie just gets to go balls to the wall and be like, this is the Ape Society. Look at the children playing basketball, you know.
I don't really like Helena Bonham Carter in this movie either. I think she was a weird casting choice for a Zero type. I don't like her hair. That makeup looks more like the fucking makeup like the test makeup you see in...
You know the problem with her? As much as I do love the makeup in this movie, I think it's some of the best. I never liked hers, and I think I just nailed why. There's no hair under the chin.
She looks like the test makeup chimps from the test footage they shot before the original movie.
She doesn't look like an ape. She looks like Michael Jackson. She
looks like a weird human hybrid. I don't like it either. Paul Giamatti's on screen though, so that's good.
Paul Giamatti is amazing in this movie.
The way he moves and the way his face moves is very orangutan, and that's what works about it.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti is the perfect person to put behind ape makeup because, as Roddy McDowall and Kim Hunter explained in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, you got to overact. And my God, can the man overact?
I think that this is a slightly better example of the kind of movie that Godzilla 98 is. Because Godzilla 98 is also a generic summer blockbuster that kind of sort of has elements of the Godzilla franchise in it. This is a 10 times better attempt at that kind of thing, you know, with its particular franchise. And it doesn't even matter that it's about as faithful. You know, because at least it's more compelling than what 98 puts forth. I think 98 is also longer. That was another issue with this time, and still an issue now, is just movies are too long.
'98 also has the issue of having now very dated CG, whereas this makeup stuff still looks good. Yeah, they seem to be doing that with all the female apes. They don't have as much hair under the chin, and it just doesn't look right.
They're trying to make them look hot, and it's weird.
They're trying to differentiate the genders, I guess, but it just doesn't work.
They did that fine in the original series when they weren't doing that.
Yeah, it was more subtle. Kim Hunter's hair is a little different, and you can kind of tell she's supposed to be female because of that.
Yeah, that's enough. We can see in the performance, and
you dress them a bit more female. You don't fuck up the makeup. Nah. Seems to be more like the human relationship from the television series, which, to be fair, doesn't really make sense either, where they're more slaves than they are animals. However, they still treat them as if they're animals.
I like that we just get dropped into this world again, but because I think we just get to kind of explore some of the ideas about, like, there's a human rights faction, which is interesting. It seems like the society is sort of is sort of more advanced in the original in some ways, but not so much in others. Like, there's a human rights faction. There's not just people being shot in the fucking. We didn't see any of that. There isn't just people being shot on horseback.
A minute ago, Paul Giamatti had a great line. The last thing you want in your house is a human teenager. I always love that line.
Yeah, I saw that as well, yeah. There's decent satire. Well, one of the things I don't think works about this movie is all the satire. I think tonally it's a mess. Because I think, like, Marky Mark's performance and all of the satire of the apes doesn't work. Like, the way he comments on it just isn't... Again, he doesn't have the charisma or the personality of a Charlton Heston or any kind of lead like that, so he doesn't bounce off it in any kind of interesting way. It just feels like two things that just kind of clunkily get struck together.
It's so nice also to see orangutans that actually look like orangutans. That was the one great failing of the original makeup, is that the orangutans didn't really look like orangutans.
Yeah. I think that's also why they wanted to distance themselves from the original franchise, is because they wanted to do more realistic designs, which is also why when they decided when they were gonna do Rise, they weren't like, we're gonna do a prequel to the original. They decided to reboot proper.
You know what? Now that I look at her again, there is hair under the chin, but it's so light it's hardly noticeable. It doesn't really register on camera.
See, they are definitely being, like, really brutal with the people, so I at least like that. At least, we may not be getting the proper hunt with them getting gunned down, but they're getting branded and shit. Oh, I really like the design of the gorillas who are working for him as well, with the things over their faces, presumably, so that way they don't get, like, fucking illnesses and shit from the people.
Yeah, that's great. It's a little weird that Paul Giamatti doesn't bother to wear one when he's in here, but whatever.
I don't like how, like... You'd think this ape society will be designed in such a way where they're like, you can't do this, like, you can't climb around the walls in a room because that's just crazy. Like you think that you think that it wouldn't be like, oh shit, she's scattered on the walls. It's like, oh my god, what are you doing? It's like, we can all do that, I guess not, though. I guess in this world where it's like this proper ape civilization, some of them are in shape and some of them are out of shape, so some of them can just scatter across the walls and some of them can't.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really say, oh, you can't run around the walls because that's crazy. It's not from their perspective.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be, but it is. Like, they're reacting to it like it is, though. I think that's the issue. But I guess it's not, because Paul Giamatti, he's not running around the walls. He should be able to, but he's not, because he's just, like, fucking making money off this shit.
Well, him and the other orangutan that's in this movie, the big fat one that we meet later at the dinner party, he ain't running around any walls.
No, certainly not.
Yeah, first they totally beat the hippie apes. They'd just be hanging out and fucking all day.
Oh, I don't like this. This is stupid. The story in this movie is just a non-start. Like, I don't care about anything yet. Like, what is even... You know, there's... We talked about it with the commentary on the original. I hate to keep bringing it back to that, but... You know, that has a very clear sense of what is going on and what's threatening our characters at all times. This is super meandery. And it has not made enough of an attempt to make me care about, you know, individual elements from scene to scene. From scene to scene. This also, and this is bad as well. This also feels kind of like a better version of the 1996 version of Island of Dr. Moreau, where the impact of the situation just doesn't come across because everything just feels so clunkily thrown together.
This might be part of the reason that the orangutans in the original series kind of bothered me. Since I saw this movie first, they kind of just look like chimps who had gotten old. Like this dude here, he's just a chimp who's old and his hair's turned gray, but he kind of looks like an orangutan from the original series, you know?
I don't know if I agree with that. I just like the variety, though. That's something that the new series also has brought, mostly, that I appreciate. Just a variety in designs of apes. Although I wish we could just get some more characters outside of chimpanzees. You know, like even in the new movie, like we have Bad Ape, who's a chimp, and then we have the gorilla villain who we still don't know anything about, really.
Yeah, the idea seems to be that in all the versions of the Planet of the Apes continuity, the chimp population is just much larger than the other two groups.
Yeah. This gorilla I like a lot as well.
Yeah, I really like him. I don't know who plays him.
Me neither. He looks a lot different from Michael Clark Duncan's gorilla, though, and again, I just appreciate the variety of designs.
He always struck me as looking kind of oriental. Like when I read
good job, Captain America.
When I read Stone Monkey, I kind of the Chinese gorilla general. I kind of pictured that guy.
I pictured more just like Ursus in like a gi. That's my favorite orangutan design. That's awesome.
Yeah, finally one with the head frills, right?
It looks really good too. That chimpanzee looked really close to the original series. That looked very much like a Cornelius. Marky Mark's reaction to this whole thing has just been nothing.
What? No.
Like, this doesn't work. Oh, there's that guy. He was in The Mummy, and The Mummy Returns.
Oh, yeah. But was he in the animated series?
I doubt it. Maybe he was.
Do you remember the Mummy animated series?
Yeah. The design for the Mummy was actually really cool, but everything else about it was like, why is this a thing? It should have been about the... My problem with the Mummy was always that it wasn't about the Mummy, it was about Brendan Fraser. And I never really gave a shit about his character. I like the first Mummy movie, and I like design elements of the second one, but I think that franchise is like a bit like this movie, super generic. Like, it's just like, it's generic action movie 101, you know?
I do enjoy the dinner conversation here about humans and whether or not they have souls and whether they should be treated better.
This is the bit that's between Zaius and Zira and Julius in the zoo, or in the lab in the first movie. But this is just more pedestrian. It's more Aristotic. What am I trying to say? They're talking about shit, you know? They're sitting around a table kind of having a fancy dinner. It's all about proper etiquette and everything. It's not about scientists having a philosophical discussion. See, I feel like the original Planet of the Apes is just
Does that bother you that it's not being told from like a scientific perspective?
No, because the original novel tackles it from both points of view. So I like that we're getting that here, but
yeah, I like getting it from.
I wish we had characters that I cared about. That's what I want. You know, that's what the original movie has that this one doesn't. I don't care about any of these fucking characters. They look cool. They're in a cool looking environment. Some of the backstory is interesting, but I just could not give a fuck about any of these characters. I don't know Helena Bonham Carter's name. I know that Tim Roth's name is Thade. I know that Mark Wahlberg's name is fucking Davidson.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember Helena Bonham Carter's name in this either.
This kind of reminds me of the scene from Django Unchained at the end, where fucking Leonardo DiCaprio cracks open the skull, except Tim Roth just did it with Mark Wahlberg's actual head while he was still alive.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, because Tim Roth also a frequent Tarantino collaborator.
I like, yeah, that's interesting. I like a lot of bits of Tim Roth's performance. I think like his Emil Blonsky performance, at some points he takes it a little too far. Like when he actually turns into the monster at the end, I don't like that. But everything else about his performance I like in that movie.
I like him better near the end of this movie when he starts to come unhinged and like his psychotic chimp nature comes.
Nope, I completely disagree with you. I think that's too much. I like it better now when he's kind of trying to keep it buried inside. Like, you know that he's just going to explode at any minute, but he's trying to be a civilized man of, you know, of authority.
So it's so weird to think that
this guy is Zaius. This guy is supposed to be Zaius, and I find that very interesting.
What guy?
Thade. Thade is clearly supposed to be our Zaius.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about that big orangutan for a moment, and I thought maybe you had fallen behind me again. No, yeah, he really blends into this role, though. You got to give him credit for that. It's so hard to believe this is the same guy who, in Reservoir Dogs, you know, is fucking crying with the guts spilling out. You know,
I am not going to criticize the makeup at all or the designs at all. Like, it looks amazing. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, again, the range of motion that they all go for, moving more like real apes, I really appreciate them. I always kind of wish that the original franchise had tried to do a little bit more of that. You know, I know that they were a little bit more limited in that respect, but it would have been nice to see, you know.
The gorilla on the left that we just saw a second ago looked a lot like the gorillas in the original series. All the background apes, they're just designed to be a mix of realism and the original designs, I just realized. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, they do it a little bit in the original series. Like, the chimps will, like, sort of run with their shoulders hunched. So that kind of gives a suggestion of their simian nature. But I think they just take it to the next level here.
How the hell did they get out? See, now they're just breaking out, though. You know, like that's just what they're gonna do now.
Yeah.
But there's just like zero thrust to it. There was no like moment where we were just like, oh yeah, Marky Mark's gonna break out now. Like they just suddenly decide, like there's no drama to this at all. Like they're just leaving.
See, the idea is they never would have broken out on their own because they're just used to the way things are, and it's because Marky Mark.
Oh, that wasn't them leaving. Okay, that's the apes going off. I thought that was them escaping the city. My bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I remember liking this bit. This is where they find the space pod, and then, if I remember correctly, Thade kills the two gorillas so that there won't be any witnesses.
Because I like how they make things kind of contained, like they do in the original movie, and it's for just as interesting reasons, and kind of the same reasons. How is he going to kill two gorillas when he's just one chimp? What does he do?
Stab them both in the back, if I remember correctly. He has this great ability in this movie to go from, like, calm but with rage seething under the surface, and then just literally go ape shit.
He's got Van Helsing blades. This is pre-Van Helsing. Oh, shit. See, if anybody was within 20 feet, they would have known exactly what happened. That was too much. That's what I'm talking about. I do like that there is that same mindset from the original series, though, of like any idea that humans are advanced and intelligent is a problem. But again, it's just as much of a problem with this movie as much as it is like the original TV show, where it's like they're intelligent and speaking the same language, so it's just 10 times less believable, you know? And in this one, it's more confused than even the TV show is, where it's like they're slaves, but they're also treated like animals, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It works a little better than I remembered it when I was a kid, though, because it's more like the TV show where it's like they're animals who are being used for servitude. You know, it's almost like a horse, or it's almost like the way the apes were used in Conquest. This is definitely like a star-studded cast of people who were in a lot of stuff that I like from this period, you know? You got Whistler from Blade, you got fucking these dudes. It's just those are some bold fashion choices. Oh, here we go, Dylan, your favorite scene.
Oh yes.
I don't like this scene. And in fact, I think it is the pinnacle example of what I'm talking about when I say that. I think Tim Burton took things a little too far in some certain places, and I think that his satire and idea of like trying to make fun of certain archetypes of people by using the apes is a dark exaggeration. Just goes too far. That was a shorter scene than I remember, though, and thank God for that. So it's not as bad as I remember, but even still, like this, it's like, it's a bit redundant, you know. It's like this is ridiculous. I don't like this at all. What the fuck? Like, this is just absolutely horrible. Like, how can you defend this bit at all?
I'm not.
Good. Just
Again,
I like this bit. This bit I like.
Yeah,
Oh, she's crying. Oh, that's great.
I will say that I like the idea of seeing Paul Giamatti hanging upside down. I mean, it just goes further to showing again how the apes in this movie are more ape-like than in previous incarnations.
I'm proud of you. You took my challenge and you did it. Good job.
I don't think it's necessarily done very well, but I get the idea.
No, it looked really stupid. Like, that's the thing, is like I just think it comes off as dumb, and like I'm not laughing with this, I'm laughing at the idea of them doing this, you know? It's like the reaction they didn't want to the hear no see no evil bit in the first movie, you know? Like, you don't go, "Oh my god, what are they doing?" You go, "Oh shit, like that means something and is impactful." You know what I'm talking about?
That's the difference. The see no evil bit is supposed to mean something and be impactful. None of that shit was. It was just supposed to be.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But it doesn't come off in the way that it's intended. You know, you don't watch that and you go, "Oh, ha, 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 that's quite funny." You go, "What the fuck? That's stupid." Don't do that.
Tim Burton has always had a way of inputting these sort of weird flourishes. I mean, his even something like Batman '89, which is probably the least devoid of his particular aesthetic of any of his movies. It's made to be a little bit. It's supposed to. I think he was trying to restrain himself and make it look faithful to you know, a Batman story. So it doesn't really have that classic Tim Burton look. He goes a little bit crazier in the second one with the circus people and everything. But anyway, even in that movie, you know, there'll be like just the little weird moments, you know, sort of non sequitur. I'm trying to think of one, but I can't. But you know what I mean. He does that a lot.
He's a very... Excuse me. I apologize for doing that on the commentaries when I can't cut them out. But he definitely sometimes goes for more style over substance, or more style over story. Maybe is more the idea. Where he's like, I'm going to show you this weird shit because I want to, not because it's part of the story. And I think this movie has a lot of that. But more than that, the context of it just doesn't fit with the story. And the story itself is just so nothing that ultimately I just don't care about any of it, you know? Like,
I think it's kind of the problem that I had with Peter Jackson's Kong 05. I think Tim Burton has a
that's a better movie than this is.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is that I think Tim Burton has a similar habit of overindulging himself at times. Not even to the same extent. I mean, Peter Jackson just overindulged himself for 3 straight hours in that. But, I mean, you know what I mean. He's like, much like Willy Wonka. He's like a grown man who gets to run a candy store, and it's insane, you know?
Yeah, it's problematic. I think you're totally right. I love these bits where this is like the Obi-Wan bit where it's like, oh, I'm going to distract them so they can run away. But it's such a bad plan because they're going to get distracted and stop and not run away. You're better off just running with them and getting them to keep going, you know? You know, I get the idea of like, oh, you're going to stop the bad guys, but at least in this instance, unlike Star Wars, they actually kept going. So this is actually working. But in Star Wars, it only made things worse. Like that's what Obi-Wan failed to understand. I think Michael Clarke Duncan also disappears into that makeup and that role. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, you can only really tell it's him because of the voice.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just don't think that this movie has enough of any kind of real thrust. Oh, we have so much more left, too. Ah. God. I like that he's got a little political agenda. I like that Tim Burton's trying to keep me interested with that shit, but
I like his little gray goatee. That's a nice way to distinguish him from other chimps on screen. You know what I mean?
I like that shot a lot. Don't like the girl at all. Don't like our version of Nova in this. Great. That's not a bad bit in theory. I don't know if we were supposed to laugh at it like that though. It was really funny though.
See what I mean when I say that I got kind of an Asian vibe from this gorilla?
I don't doubt that the actor is Asian. I just thought it was hilarious before, and you were like, he's kind of Oriental looking.
I don't know if he's I don't even know if the actor is necessarily Asian. I just think the character is designed in a way that kind of...
Are they going to find fucking Yoda? Like, why does this look like Dagobah?
Well, this is the swamp that he crashed into, is the idea.
Why are people? No, but, why do space people always have to crash into swamps on alien planets? Why can they never crash in a city?
Well, first of all, a water landing is preferable for screenwriting reasons because you're less likely to die.
A real gorilla cannot jump like that, no?
I'm not sure, man. I've never seen a gorilla jump, believe it or not.
But that looked like fucking Clark Kent in Smallville.
His costume almost looks a bit like a kimono. Like, I feel like that's what gave me the impression.
I don't like the reaction to water. Like, that's a little much. Like, I get the idea of it, but it's a little stupid. Like King Kong 76, like knocked that out. So fuck you, Tim Burton. Did you not see King Kong 76?
It's a bit of outdated science as well.
Well, of course, like, yeah, again, in King Kong 76, like, you know, Dwan is like, oh, Jack, I read your book. You said that apes can't go in water. And then you just see Kong in the water not giving a fuck. So there you go. Oh, God, this girl I don't like at all.
Well, we have footage now, like orangutans, like swimming and shit. Like,
Oh my god, this she's nothing. Like, what is she doing? Like, why is she going down there? What does she hope to accomplish?
I don't know, but I kind of hope she finds the severed head from Jaws. Oh, similar idea. All right.
You're not too far off. She found a zombie mummy. That's really creepy. We've never seen anything like that well, there was that bit where you saw the apes hanging in beneath, but this is this is creepier than that is. See, I want more stuff like that in a Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie. That was a good moment. Although he works with the apes like on a daily basis, though, so he really should have a better idea.
Well, even at the beginning of the movie, though, he was calling them monkeys. I think the idea, though, because he was arguing with the woman on the space station at the beginning about how they should be treating the apes. He's not really on the biological side of things. He was just more on the actual flight training. And he doesn't seem to be too thrilled about the idea anyway, because he has that line when he gets into his pod and he says, "Never send a monkey to do a man's job."
Yeah. So they should have developed that idea more, though, for sure.
Yeah, well, I think they just needed a better actor to sell it. Because the idea of taking a person who works with apes, who kind of has a low opinion of them, and putting him on the Planet of the Apes, like that's great. That's a great place to start your story.
I really like the idea of where the apes come from in this, and the fact that the ship crashed, and that the goal of the whole movie is to get to to where the ship crashed because they're already there waiting for him, he thinks, but really it's because they crashed there thousands of years ago. I really like that. I just don't give a fuck about any of it.
Yeah, the writer of this film, it seems like he spent a lot of time developing an interesting version of the Apes world, and not so much on the characters.
I think this is a garbage script that Tim Burton made look kind of interesting in certain ways. But at the end of the day, I think Fox fucked this up. I think Tim Burton kind of fucked it up, but I think the writer fucked it up most of all. Because it's just enough. The dialogue is super generic. You know what else this movie has a problem with? The action doesn't have a lot of weight. Like, he just blew up that tree, but there were no consequences to it except everybody got a little scared. I feel like all the action in this movie has, like, people get hit by apes and they get thrown dozens of feet in the air and then they don't die. It's like, it's sort of, it's a little cartoony in not a good way, in a non-compelling way.
So you don't like the way that the apes kind of overreact in this movie? Is that correct to say?
I think it works. It works in some instances, and it doesn't work in others. Whenever Helena Bonham Carter does it, I don't think it works. Whenever Paul Giamatti does it, sometimes I think it works.
Well, again, the behavior in this movie is supposed to be more accurate to real life apes. I mean, having recently been to my local zoo and witnessed a shouting match between a siamang and some other form of gibbon, I can attest to the to the accuracy of the way these apes holler.
I guess. I just think it's at odds with everything else. Oh, Jesus. I like that.
I think she needs more hair on the cheeks, too, if that would have helped.
They all need different hair. I don't like that Paul Giamatti gets taken with them, because I think he's better in small doses. I think he gets I get sick of him as the movie goes on. Because they just kind of like they force him into the rest of the movie, you know? See, these are the bits of his performance that I really like where he's like being scheming and trying to make shit happen. And look, he's like really holding in his rage because he knows the senator's not going to let him do it exactly how he wants. I really like the senator as well because he's a nice little like halfway point between like the dickishness of the ape aristocracy, but also like the rationale of his daughter. He's sort of halfway.
Yeah, but you giving me a character who has clear rage seething beneath the surface. I'm just counting the seconds until he loses his shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, again, I just don't think the overacting works as much for me. I don't know. You know what it does? Maybe some of it looks too wiry. Like it looks like I can tell they're on wires. Like when they start flipping around in the big battle later. I didn't notice that he has like two really like weird, creepy looking chimps, like vampire looking chimps on his armor. I wonder what that's supposed to mean.
I don't know, but you see that symbology in the opening credits as well.
Yeah. But I wonder what it means. Does it mean that there were vampires?
This version of the
we must march into the Forbidden Zone.
This version of the Ape Society is kind of Roman, and I think that's what they're trying to evoke. You know, he's the leader, so he has kind of the most ornate armor, and you see him strolling around like conspiring with senators in long robes. It's all very sort of Spartacus.
Well, if it's anything like the Apes world we're familiar with, he probably hasn't had much actual combat experience outside of hunting humans. You know?
Yep.
So
given that the humans in this world are a bit more intelligent than the ones in the classic continuity, I wouldn't be surprised if he's had to put down a few minor uprisings here and there, but nothing.
Their population is probably super small, though, given the relationship we usually see. You know, they probably beat them down to the point where they can't do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe you're right. That would certainly make sense. Huh, that's pretty funny. I think one of the reasons I like Paul Giamatti is that he feels one of the more... Oh boy, here we go. Well, before we get into it then, I feel like Paul Giamatti is one of the more earnest performances here, by and large. But anyways, all right, here we go. So Dylan, what are we looking at?
Yeah, how do you feel about Chimp Heston? I like Chimp Heston.
Yeah, I change my opinion of it every time I see it, but yeah, I think it's good. That I can tell is Charlton Heston in makeup.
I think if you're gonna bring back Charlton Heston, though, old ass in his 90s or whatever, however fucking old he was at the time, Heston, to be in your Apes movie, you gotta flip the tables and put him in ape makeup. Like that's...
Yeah, I think if you were gonna bring him back, this was the way to do it. I think this is a really great coup that they made this happen. This kind of makes this movie worth it. This is also probably the best scene in the movie. This is the scene that when I watched when I was a kid, I was like, oh all right, there's some good stuff in this. This
is the fucking Darth Plagueis legend from Revenge of the Sith of this movie.
Yeah, that is a good way to look at it.
I especially love the part where he gives him the gun and he describes it and he says this is their greatest weapon. It has the power of 1,000 spears. Like it's great shit.
To bring back Kong 76, it's the Jack talking about the legend of Skull Island to the Petrox workers. It's just the creepy ambiance. It's the creepy ambiance of it and the dark implications that make the whole thing really interesting.
I feel like this was the scene that the screenwriter wrote the movie for. You know what I mean? You know how sometimes you're writing something and you have a particular scene that's just sort of your baby and the rest of it you're just sort of writing to get to that. You know what I mean?
I just think this is one of the few scenes where the themes of the movie are actually effectively evoked and actually make an impact. This is, I think, one of the only scenes in the movie that has any kind of emotional weight whatsoever.
Chimp Heston.
Now, that's an older looking gun to me than what Marky Mark's got on him. No?
I don't know. I'd have to have another look at Marky Mark's gun. I really wasn't paying attention to it before.
But that doesn't look like as much of a really specific future gun as Marky Mark had. That looks like it could be a gun from now. And I think that they clearly did that because they didn't want people to peg that exactly what was going on was that, you know, these apes were this descent from the apes on the ship.
You're probably right. You know, I think it's easy enough to write off. That's probably just a different model.
It could have been. It could have been something they had in storage. Who knows? I'm not saying it's like, oh, it's bullshit. It doesn't make sense. I'm just saying, oh, the Forbidden Area. Yeah, that's a good name for it.
I like to think that maybe.
Why would they change it from the Forbidden Zone? The Forbidden Zone is such a better name.
I don't know.
They could have called it the Forbidden Reaches, the Forbidden Region, and that would have been fine because at least that sounds cool too. But the Forbidden Area is still it's so stupid sounding.
Or they could just call it, you know, the fucking desert.
Him dying in this scene is a little over the top.
Because the whole reason that the zone is forbidden in the original franchise is it's tied to the nuclear war. And
well, there's a similar idea here, and I think that works.
I did love that his dying line, though, was damn them all to hell. That was great.
It's just super convenient and cartoony and stupid that this is the moment he decides to die. That looks very original Forbidden Zone. That's cool.
But I like to think that gun maybe was the generals that we saw at the beginning of the movie. You know,
I like the scarecrows too. I like they look like creepy baboons. That's awesome.
We didn't really get a great look at them in the first movie, even when they came up on them. So I like.
Well, they do. We get pretty close. They're nothing. There's no specific parts of them detail whatsoever. It's just like this generic shape. There's some detail to these, and it's really creepy. Oh, the first mention of Semos, who is the Jesus of this new apes, of this new apes lore. He's the lawgiver.
He's kind of the Caesar and the lawgiver all rolled up into one.
Yeah. I think the religion is super underdeveloped, and I think it's kind of, it's a little too, like, hazy-daisy, like, oh, it could be anything. Like, I feel like the structure of and the uniqueness of the original lawgiver scrolls mythology is really effective, and this could kind of just be anything. It could be any cultish worship, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, not to compare it, but just to show that this is a 10 times more generic type of thing than the original. But I think I've made that point already. Ooh, I like the two moons up in the distance as well. That's cool looking.
Yeah. I like that this is clearly not Earth.
Yeah.
So immediately watching the movie, you know that they're not going for the same twist that was in the original film.
This movie is also definitely not a slow burn. You can't accuse it of that. I do think it's completely lost steam now, in my opinion.
I think it's pretty well paced. It's not nearly as paced as the original series was.
Well, again, I think it's already lost its steam. I think it was fine up until they were. I think it was fine up until they were working in the house, and then I was like, "Oh shit, what the hell's going on now? I don't give a fuck."
With the possible exception of for the Planet of the Apes, because we already talked about how that movie had some pacing issues compared to the first four movies of that series. It too got a little slow in the middle, although I think it picked it back up some at the end.
I still think that's quite a more entertaining movie than this is. I think this has just got like a bad case of the second act blues, because we've seen this type of thing a million times. We've seen people on the run being chased by the authorities, and they'll stop at nothing to get them, and they're trying to achieve some goal of freedom. And this hasn't made any attempt to make me care about the individual people involved in it. So
I know it'll never happen, but I really wish that the movies past war, when we do some time skips and get more into a more traditional ape setup, I really wish that they'd go back to some prosthetic makeup and all this stuff.
Watching this again, I feel the same way. I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either. It's sad.
I mean, look at what they did with the Beauty and the Beast remake, which I haven't seen. You have, right?
Yeah, that was
They
awful.
shot that. They shot that prosthetically, and then they replaced it with CGI, The Thing 2011 style. So, sadly, that's the world we live in.
He looked horrible in that movie.
I didn't see it.
All the rest of the CG in the movie wasn't that bad, but something about him, man, he didn't gel. He didn't look good.
There's no reason to not do that practically. It's ridiculous to not do that practically. And I think that doing the apes as more like in clothes, advanced and shit, and doing that as CGI will be a bit ridiculous as well. I think at a certain point, I would like to see prosthetic, or maybe at least a mix, right? Maybe at least that.
I mean, on the one hand, I've been very impressed with what Weta has been doing. Each of these new Planet of the Apes movies has looked better than the last. Just when you think that they can't get the motion capture apes to look any better, suddenly they do. I mean, Rise, when it came out, was like, that looks so fucking cool. Oh my god! And then Dawn came out and blew it out of the fucking water. And time will tell how good Rise looks. Although from the trailers alone, it looks to be at least as good as Dawn.
You mean
was.
War? But yes, I agree.
What did I say?
You said Rise.
Oh, fuck. But yeah, especially when they fast forward into the future, and you have the excuse at that point of evolution having had some time to work. I'd like to see a return to prosthetics, but again, I don't think it'll happen in this climate.
We'll see.
I'm
That was really bad CGI right there where they did the roar. Did you notice that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because they had to extend his mouth out past his human capability. That looked ridiculous.
I'm already a little suspicious of the claims that there will be some practical work in the next Godzilla movie.
Yeah, that'll either be cut out or replaced without question. I mean, they just started shooting that. Like, they don't even have an official title for that movie. A King of the Monsters is just a working title. They'll probably call that like Godzilla again.
In a world where we couldn't even get our Takarada cameo in the last film, I doubt that they'll
Yeah,
leave
dude, one of the first things we saw from the production 2014 was Akira Takarada and Gareth Edwards together smiling. Like, it was kind of embarrassing that they cut that out, Like, Gareth Edwards ended up apologizing to him, so...
Even more embarrassing, it's not even on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. They cut out a couple of bizarre stuff that they didn't put on the Blu-ray. I don't like the action of this movie either. I don't think it's a very good action piece, and it's a dumb summer action blockbuster, so that's problematic. You know what else this reminds me of? Batman Forever. Here we go. This is an example. This is a worse version of Batman Forever to me. Like, because Batman Forever is another movie that's like incredibly flawed, has a lot of problems, but it's got some really good ideas, good performances, good aesthetic stuff, good story ideas, and it kind of pulls through for me with that. This movie has some of that for me.
I do like the relationship between Michael Clark Duncan and the other gorilla.
I do like that. I forgot that he has a turning point. Because they just try to kill him because he's with them, even though they don't know. Although, realistically, he shouldn't have the turning point, because they think that he's kidnapped, and they're not trying to save him. They're trying to save the senator's daughter, and they're trying to stop the humans above all else. So they could care less. I don't know. I guess he's just questioning his society now that he's been with them for a hot minute.
I don't even think.
Why did he follow them on his own? He's a fucking idiot. Why would he do that? Initially,
Who?
Paul Giamatti, whose name I also don't know in the movie.
I'm not entirely sure, honestly.
He's a fucking idiot. Why would he chase them into the middle of the woods by himself? He's not a fighter. We established that he can't run along walls like fucking Helena Bonham Carter can.
I don't think we need one chick. I don't understand why she's even in the movie.
She is a total waste of space, yeah.
She doesn't need to be there. She's just there because I guess they felt like they needed a Nova type, but it doesn't. Like, you could have had Marky Mark find the dead apes at the bottom of the lake, and you wouldn't have had to have her dive in after him.
I think this is an example of like where we're taking the apeness too far. Does he have to leap around like this? What?
Again, I don't. I see both sides of it because real apes do this kind of shit when they're angry.
But just put it in a different context then, where his anger isn't hilarious. Or in a context where I'm laughing at it and I'm like, oh, okay, I should be laughing at this. His dad just died. I'm not supposed to be laughing, you know? I'm supposed to be, like, sort of sympathetic to him for feeling righteously angry at all humans for the fact that the terror of them took his father away from him, you know? Took his wisdom. That's why he's lost it, and that's cool. But I don't want to be laughing at the execution of bringing that forward, you know? Just do another take, I don't know. Don't put him on dumb wires, something.
I do like the explanation that the reason Thade's family is in charge is because they're supposed to be the direct descendants of Semos. It makes it make a little bit more sense that no ape was ever like, hey, those guys are assholes. Why don't we put somebody else in charge?
Yeah, again, the politics are different in this movie. It's not about it's not about, oh, gorillas and orangutans. It's about, okay, these guys are from this family and these guys are from that family. It's not so much about the species in this movie, because we saw an orangutan fucking a chimpanzee, an orangutan of authority, that would have never, ever happened in the original series.
It's not a caste system. It's more of a.
It's like a royal bloodline type of thing.
Yeah, again, it's more Roman.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
It's kind of part monarchy, part oligarchy. Yeah, it's weird.
They tried to make the ape society less rigid, I feel. Or less Catholic, maybe? Maybe that's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
But the gorillas are still very much...
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very medieval as well. I don't know. Because the society in the original just feels more 60s, I guess. This doesn't feel like the early 2000s, though.
Well, the society in the original film is a lot more post-apocalyptic. It's a lot more that we're surviving in this harsh world that's been ruined by nuclear war, and we've developed this society in order to cope with that.
This planet ain't great either, though.
Well, it's better than the one. It's
They're still surrounded by desert in a little sprocket of trees.
It's surrounded by desert, but there are clearly zones of it that are you know.
Yeah, but I think it's been destroyed by the ship crash in the same way that like nuclear bombs would destroy a world. Like that would devastate a world anyway. Like I've read like Star Wars novels where there like during the Galactic War, Rebel Alliance ships that were like older and using crap destructive materials would crash into planets and destroy tribal life, and then those tribes would hate them 10 years later and start working for the Empire. Like
right, but I don't think that's the idea though behind the Ape Society.
It should have been. It should have been.
Oh
wow,
well, I don't know, Bill.
We're here. We're here already. Damn.
On the one hand, near the beginning of the movie, you said that your problem with it was that you didn't think that it went weird enough and took enough chances. But then every other complaint that you have is, they should have done this more like the original. So I don't know. I don't know what they could have done differently. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I'm not mad that they didn't make it more like the original. I'm just trying to figure out the motivation and what they could have done to make what they're exactly trying to do work.
Anyway, because they're not doing the whole "this is Earth the whole time" twist, it's less of a post-apocalypse and more of just a, hey, isn't this society fucked up?
We have like an hour of movie left. How are we here already?
Hello?
What happens in the next hour? What constitutes that? I guess it's not really an hour. It's more like... I guess it's more like 45 minutes. But even still, I guess it's all apes punching people like 20 feet in the distance.
Yeah. Well, the battle scene coming up. That's some of my fondest memories of this movie. The fucking ape chimp, the fucking waves of chimps running into battle.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him well. Marky Mark, that was the closest to Shakespeare you'll ever get.
I like to think that was the scientist he was arguing with at the beginning.
Yeah,
Kalima.
I like that as well. It's stupid, and he just totally ruined it by scratching it off the wall. But it's still
They totally just ripped off Star Trek, but
yeah, the whole V'ger thing. Yeah, I like how much they made it look like the Forbidden Zone in the original, and how they made this look like the city in Beneath.
Yeah, I feel like the terrain is a little bit more even than the original. The original Forbidden Zone was a lot more, cliffs and things, but it does definitely have that desolate feel.
It strangely looks less alien in this, except for the sky.
Yeah, well, I feel like the first movie was almost overcompensating a little bit, and then it was trying to make it look more alien because they didn't want you to see that plot twist coming. This, conversely, oddly enough, clearly not Earth, but they don't feel the need to try and avoid that twist because there is no such twist. So it just looks, it's weird. In doing the opposite thing, they take the opposite approach. It's odd.
It is interesting, yeah, because they don't have to overcompensate for that. I'm not saying it's a problem. I still like the look of this. I like how close it still mirrors it, even though it's different. But I don't remember what exactly we were getting at, but all in all, this ain't. I mean, I'd like to know what. Maybe they mentioned it, but what exactly is keeping it powered? Like what runs this spaceship that allows thousands of years of rock and muck building up over all this to not destroy it, But there we go. We just saw the transmission, so we know that. I like that they got their own transmission as well. I think that was his commander from earlier, who was younger. Yeah, that's cool. It looks good too. It looks a little video gamey though, but it works. Who the hell is that?
That's the scientist lady that he was arguing with at the beginning of the movie.
Oh. This is a little like when they probe the mind of the humans in the original Pierre Boulle novel.
I was going to say this does feel a lot like that. Again, I think this movie, I think the screenwriter took a few cues from the original book that, before I had read it, I had no idea.
It's not a bad way to do it either. Okay, that's like the first interesting dimension to his character that they've brought because he feels a sense of guilt that they came looking for him. Also, this whole thing is his fault anyway, so that's also kind of, well, it is a little his fault, but it's not entirely his fault.
It is pretty much his fault. I mean,
it's a mix of him and whoever thought of putting these apes into space anyway. It's a mix of them. Them two together overall created this whole thing. I don't like this. I don't like that these people just fucking show up out of nowhere. This has taken place over the course of a day. How did all these people suddenly find out that there was some miracle man out there?
Well, did it take place over the time? It's not really made clear how long they were traveling.
It's true. This looks like Stargate. This looks like Stargate now all of a sudden, and that's not a good thing.
It is a tad Stargate. Also kind of puts me in mind of 10,000 BC. Also not a great thing.
Also not a good thing, yeah. Man, that movie sucks. I never finished it. I only got halfway through. I got up to when they went to ancient Egypt or whatever, and I was like, what? What is this?
Yeah.
He wanted a loincloth. That's why he's depressed.
Yeah, I mean, if he hadn't defied orders by his commanding officer and gone chasing after the chimp, then they wouldn't have come looking for him. They wouldn't have crashed on the planet. There would be no ape. Well, maybe the apes still would have risen, but they would have only been taking over a space station now.
It's interesting. It's kind of like how you might look at the original timeline if you consider it cyclical, where when Cornelius and Zero went back in time and they brought, and then they had their son there, and then he ended up starting the ape uprising, that it's kind of Taylor's fault that he created the world he ended up being in that he didn't like, because it was his ship that they used to get back there, It's a bit of a similar idea. It's obviously stretched further in the original, and Taylor's dead by the time they do that, so he wouldn't care anyway. So we actually get to see this guy deal with the ramifications of this all being his fault. And I think when he gets to Earth, when he gets to Earth at the end, what happens there is a little more tragic because of that as well.
I would put more direct blame on Dr. Hasline, because the very presence of those apenauts in the 70s might have rewritten history in a way to prevent the ape uprising, but his paranoia could have caused it to happen anyway.
It is interesting. What is the point of the battle again? What are they fighting over?
Well, the humans have all come to him because even though he was just trying to get back to his people, because he stood up to the apes in a way that nobody has in a long time, they kind of see him as this messiah figure.
Yeah, well, that I got. They all came together because they heard stories about him.
The apes are coming to shit all over their parade.
Realistically, they should run deep into the woods and hide. If they were going to be smart about this, they should have played this like Chuck Heston in that story in the Apes book that we read. They should not be like, they should not Braveheart this, because it'll not go well.
Well, in a way, what they're attempting to do with the second half of this film is kind of the Chuck Heston sequel that everybody wanted to see, where he leads an uprising. It sort of becomes that. It's not necessarily executed very well, but that's what they're attempting. Mark Wahlberg has now realized he can't go home, and he has no choice but to kind of stand up to the ape society and try to do something about it.
Yeah, I do like that we get a good sense of what's going on, like well before the movie ends, because that's not what the twist is. Damn, I'd really like to know who that actor is playing that ape.
Just the little details, man. In the original films, they never gave the apes little touches of gray to distinguish them, but that's all over this film. I mean, Dade's got his goatee. Michael Clark Duncan's got the silver on the sides of his head. The other gorilla's got a bit more gray in the face. Just little shit like that, man.
So they gave themselves up, which I guess is probably for the best, because they would have just been in the way anyway. They know the apes aren't going to kill them.
I like that before he wanted to bang her because she was a senator's daughter, and it would have been a good power play. But now he's in this position where his dad has died, he's in command, the Senate has declared martial law, so he really doesn't need her anymore.
Well, now she's kind of putting herself out there to try and get what she wants.
Right, but the point is, because he doesn't really need her anymore, he's free to be more of an outright dick to her. It's clear this isn't a Gaston Bell Beauty and the Beast relationship where he was a shithead but he liked her genuinely. This was clearly a, hey, if I could sleep with her, it would be good for my military career.
Oh shit! Yeah, he's totally snapped. Yeah, that's the coolest. Well, not the coolest. That's the most. That's the most interesting thing he's done. Right there.
And that's the moment where Michael Clark Duncan's like, I don't know about this guy.
That's better than him leaping around on wires. we've definitely hit a bit of a slump here. I don't like this in movies when we sit around in opposing camps waiting for the big battle to start. It's so like, oh, can we just get into it, please? This is why I couldn't get into Game of Thrones, because the whole series is this. It's people sitting around in camps waiting for battles to start.
Yes, I prefer my political intrigue to come before the war.
I prefer people hacking each other's heads off. That's what I like to see. I'm waiting for that. Damn right, Marky Mark. You sure are. Nope.
You and your damn funky bunch.
Get your funky bunches out of this fucking planet of apes.
I'd like to
Are
think
you
that
a member of the cult of Satan?
I'd like to think that if Marky Mark was going to nickname his genitalia, he would call them the Funky Bunch.
I had a friend named Mark who I called Marky Mark who. I was always like, where's your funky bunch at? He's like, you know where they're at. And I'm like, oh God. So, I'm familiar with the idea of that joke. I just don't see what this big battle is going to accomplish. They're in the middle of the desert. Who gives a fuck? Oh no, we made them look real bad and no one saw. Great.
I think that's the idea, though. They're kind of fucked at this point. Yeah.
I don't know. I think if he was more committed to like him being stuck on this planet, he would have just taken everybody and just started shop up elsewhere. I mean, maybe he thinks they're going to pursue him no matter what. He wants to stand up to them now as opposed to run from them forever. So that certainly makes sense. But I was just never a big fan of this giant battle they have at the end. It just always felt... Again, it's just generic, and it feels like we're wrapping things up in the most obvious way possible, and the action doesn't really satisfy me, so... I just think we could have wrapped things up in a more interesting and more unique way. I don't know specifically. I don't know specifically, but that's just that was my dream.
But there is a twist on it at the end, though, because victory does not come through them defeating Thade in the battle.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. That's a weird thing that happens.
Victory comes through the revelation that Thade and his family have been lying to everybody, and
through convenient CGI,
and then monkeys appearing out of the sky.
Yeah, thus convenient CGI. See, a lot of movies at this time did this as well. They did this weird, like, the plotting of the final plan is like its own act, you know? Like, it's really bizarre. Like, it just takes forever. Like, the recent Avengers movies have kind of done that as well. Where it's just like they'll spend like a full 25 minutes just planning out the final action, you know?
Yeah.
And
it kind of reminds me of my least favorite bit of Iron Man 2. There's all the shit where he's got to invent the new element. And
yeah, it's like that, where it's like it just build up for the third act, and I think that's what we're in here, yeah.
His dad hid the thing in the fucking Disneyland model or whatever.
No, I don't understand any of the characters in this movie. So let's not stand on breast axis here. I like the pointed helmets a lot. Those are really cool.
I like them as well. I like that the chimps wear those and the gorillas have the more like traditional sort of Earth helmets.
I like I just like the variety. There's a lot of visual variety in this movie. I think that's all Tim Burton, man.
It's kind of like how
This is a bit of a mix of Beneath and the original, isn't it? Because this is all more Beneath than it is the original, like a whole army going out into the Forbidden Zone to fight an army of humans.
yeah, I suppose. Beneath, and also, like I said, the planned Chuck Heston sequel that didn't happen, where it was him sort of leading a revolt.
Yeah. I kind of wish they would have gone there earlier to make it even more different, you know?
Right.
To stand up more to how I started this commentary, you know?
Well, I don't think it made much sense to start there, though, because
Not
obviously
start there, but get there sooner, I mean. Like, maybe have him kind of give up on getting home earlier for some reason, even if we don't know the details of what's going on. And he just kind of decides to take... I don't know. Just an idea, just a thought. Ha! That was a good shot.
Gotta love Paul Giamatti in this.
Yeah,
Like
my problem I had initially, like, oh, he gets bad as the movie goes on. Nah, I'm not having that this time. There hasn't been as much of him as I remember. In fact, if I'm sick of anybody, it's Helena Bonham Carter and the blonde chick.
Yeah, at least Helena Bonham Carter, I know why she's in the movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not terribly fond of Marky Mark either.
No, yeah, I think that was just a bizarre casting choice. I'm trying to think
One of
who
the
would have been better.
crippling elements of the movie, too, unfortunately. But him plus the script is just a... The script, I mean, you couldn't have given the script to any actor, though, and saved the movie, though.
Even Tom Cruise, who I don't like a whole lot.
I was literally just thinking Tom Cruise. He would have been great in this time period to do Planet of the Apes, yeah.
Especially, he would be such a better fit for this movie and what this movie is doing than Marky Mark.
Yeah, that probably would have been... He might have saved this movie if he would have gotten involved.
Even if this movie had been entirely the same as it is, but you had Tom Cruise instead of Marky Mark, I think that's instantly like a 20% improvement.
I don't think it would have been the same because if he would have started working with Tim Burton, I just think the collaboration there wouldn't have resulted in something this generic. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think that we would have gotten something that would have been a little more impactful had those two gotten together and tried to redo Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I've said on several occasions that Zack Snyder really should have been a DP instead of a director because he's good at making things look pretty, but not so much at telling stories. I think Tim Burton should have been a production designer. You know,
Holy shit! He just killed a whole lot of ape.
Yeah.
My God, that's not great. That's kind of stupid. I didn't like the visual of that. The CGI.
It's not great. It's not good CG, but it's 2000, so of course it's not good CG. However, I do like the idea of using the crash ship's thruster as a weapon.
No, that was awesome. Do you think that the bit in that story we reviewed where Milo does that to the gorillas is a reference to that?
It could be, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it's just the same idea, you know.
It is a similar idea. However, it's been done in other things as well, so I'm... and in this, it had the added thing of the gorillas or the other team not even knowing that it was a ship. They'd think this is some like ancient holy place. You know?
Right. Holy fuck, that was pretty... That totally worked. Oh, some of them live, though? That's odd. That's...
Well, I think the ones who were furthest away from the...
They just got pushed back, yeah.
By the shockwave, yeah. Some of them got fucking incinerated.
You know, as much crap as I'll give Marky Mark, he came up with a not terrible plan. Although, again, I just think he should have thought more about where he was going to take these people after this above all else, as opposed to just, we're going to beat the crap out of them because hope and shit.
I think he was hoping, though, that it would scare the other army off, because realistically, that's a one-shot weapon. It takes way too long for that thing to recharge.
I think if Thade hadn't been either there at all or as motivated by his father's death as he was about the outrage of humans' danger, I think maybe that would have worked to scare them off. But you know, in this instant, no, he's not going to be deterred by anything.
if Thade wasn't as unhinged as he was. In a way, it reminds me of the scene in Battle, or from Beneath the Planet of the Apes. They fucking saw the illusion, and Ursus was like, "We got to turn the fuck back," and Zeus was like, "No," and he rode right through that shit. It's a similar situation in this. Michael Clark Duncan was like, "We can't beat them with that thing," and Thade was like, "Fuck them."
Here's what I'm not liking about the action. It's too smoky. I can't really see the details, and the camera is jumping around too much for me to really get a good sense of what's going on. At the end of I just don't think Tim Burton's a very good action director. His Batman movies reflect that a lot. That's one of the things I don't like about those in particular, is just the really clunkiness of the action. This isn't clunky, it's just not distinct. Oh, there we go. There was a Wilhelm scream for you.
I don't know. Some of his shit in his two Batman movies is pretty good. Like Batman fighting his way up the clock tower.
Yeah, but his fight in the alley is not great. When he's like,
I like the bit in the second movie where he sticks the dynamite on that guy. And
that's not a fight though. That's just like he sticks dynamite in some dude's fucking pants.
Not a fight, but it is an action beat.
Oh, I guess.
Oh, and he has that moment. Was it in the first movie or the second where he shoots the grappling hook at the wall behind the dude and then pulls out the brick and hits him in the back of the head? That was
all the
clever.
car stuff is good. All the vehicle stuff is good. Like the plane stuff is good. When he's in the chemical plant at the beginning, that's also good. Where he's careening through them there. But I mean, it's just not a suit that allows for a lot of movement, so it's hard to do much that's interesting.
Yeah.
Here we go. This could have been awesome, but I feel like it's a little disappointing, this little fight here.
Christopher Nolan has the opposite problem. He doesn't know how to film his action. He got better at it as time went on.
I think that's only a problem in Batman Begins, and I don't even think it's that big of an issue. I think Dark Knight looks pretty solid, and Rises is pretty solid.
Yeah. Well, Rise has the best action sequences because he was just a lot better at filming them, but the movie itself is so much weaker.
Yeah. Well, the action is the only thing that's better in that one.
Ultimately, that's why The Dark Knight is the best of the three, because it's got the right balance. The action is good enough, and the story is good. So.
Oh shit, that was awesome! Did you see that? Oh.
Where he threw the guy up in the air and then used his helmet to beat that guy to death.
That was the best thing ever.
See, I love unhinged things.
Yeah, this is all really good. Oh, he should be dead. He realistically should be dead. Like, you do not survive being mauled by a chimp, civilized or not,
He wasn't really mauled yet, though.
No. He hasn't been bitten or scratched, but he got punched in. He got punched in the fucking head.
I don't think we'll ever see it, but because of ratings and shit. But I would love to see a chimp in one of these movies rip somebody's face off.
I mean, Caesar bit off a pilot's fucking finger in Rise.
Give us a chimp played by Nick Cage and let him take somebody's face off.
I mean, but I thought when Caesar bit that dude's finger off, that was taking it pretty far. See, this is stupid, right?
Yeah, you didn't need this. You could have just had the fight take them inside the ship, and that be where Michael Clark Duncan realizes that they had been lying all this time. You didn't need the space chimp coming back at the very. Although I guess they did set it up from the beginning, so I can't fault them for the way it was executed.
It's one of those satirical, commentative elements that it's a clever, interesting idea. I just don't think it works in execution. It's just stupid and laughable.
It feels a bit Starship Troopers, doesn't
it? This whole movie looks too much like Starship Troopers for me to like it.
I don't think the whole movie looks like Starship Troopers.
This looks like Starship Troopers, though.
This feels sort of Star Trek, sort of Mars Attacks too. It feels very Mars Attacks.
Yeah, it's just the lighting and I guess that's where we're shooting as well. This I do like the. I like the idea of all this, I guess. I don't know.
Did they mistake this chimp for their for Space Jesus? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that Thade doesn't bow because he's like, oh, I fucking know. I know what this bullshit is. Ah, that's great.
Movie forgiven. No.
Oh, look, he's got his little boots on. Let's go explain
wrong.
evolution to the monkeys. That's great.
We know, of course, that this is not CMOS. They're all fucking dumb, but...
Look at how fucking small this chimpanzee is compared to you guys. Isn't this fucking weird?
I know. You think maybe they should have... Maybe think maybe the apes at the beginning should have been dudes in makeup too, so it wouldn't have that weird...
No. It's fine. They're on an alien planet. They've been around for a few thousand years. I don't give a fuck.
It's just, there's that weird thing in movies where they can't use full-grown chimps because that's suicide, so they have to use baby chimps in every movie. And so it gives you the impression growing up that chimps are, like, small.
Yeah.
And they're not.
I mean, theoretically, the chimps that they're using in the experiments as well are also probably babies, so I guess it makes sense.
I suppose.
I just think that these chimps would be doing way more damage to the humans, you know?
Well, in a similar way that we theorized while watching the original films, it could be that part of evolving to be more human-like in proportion has also robbed them of a bit of their ape strength, you know?
I guess.
They might be as overwhelmingly strong as they were when they were, you know, just regular apes. That certainly was the case with humans growing more intelligent.
Didn't you mention at the beginning that they were that the apes in the ship were genetically modified?
Yes, there was a line where when he was talking to the scientist that apparently the apes had been at least selectively bred. I don't know if it was just that or but yeah, they've done some sort of genetic tinkering on these apes because they wanted them to be like intelligent enough to pilot the craft, obviously.
I do like that they had like fucked up CMOS like pretty good. Like he was bleeding and shit.
Well, he's not CMOS. No.
Whatever the hell his name is.
I think Marky Mark said it was Pericles.
Oh God.
I think CMOS is supposed to be the one that we saw the scientist lady operating with at the beginning of the movie, because then when they go back and watch the security recordings, she mentions that she raised CMOS herself, and now he's leading the revolution.
She mentions him by name? I don't remember that.
Yeah, she does.
Oh, okay. That's a little much. I always liked this bit when I was a kid. I think it still works now. It's a little ridiculous, but it's one of the few things in this movie that is ridiculous that I think like it works fine tonally with what's going on. It's not too ridiculous.
I really love that this is what makes Michael Clark Duncan come to his senses. Because on the one hand, he has Marky Mark standing here very calmly and explaining to him what's going on, and on the other hand, he has Thade on the other side of the glass, raving like a lunatic, and I think it puts who is an animal into perspective.
And, you know, almost killing himself, putting himself in danger. You know, he has a hopeful future of working together with the humans, or the dead, dying past of this bullshit that Thade's been feeding them with, that apes have always been superior, and that they have this, like, you know, religious superiority. Same deal as Zaius in the original series and the orangutans in general. Just
Tim Roth doesn't even sound like himself in this movie. I guess because he's doing an American accent and also snarling a lot. But the voice doesn't sound, like what he usually sounds like. Did he do an American accent or did he do any kind of accent in The Incredible Hulk? I don't remember.
It's just pretty British.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think this is the only movie I've ever seen him in where he does that kind of an accent. I guess that's why he sounds so different to me. I like that moment.
Yeah, it was good.
Where Helena Bonham Carter's like, "You're fucked now."
Well, I like that they had kind of a moment where he thought that maybe she felt bad for him, but then she opened her palm and showed the symbol, and she was like, "Fuck you," and he was like, "All right, fair enough." And by that I mean he tried to shoot her. I was like this where he just crawls under the table, like just out of fear, like it's. That shows you like that he's just an animal, just like cowering in fear of himself. He's shaking. That's a really good moment. This ending is a lot. See, I will have to agree with you that the opening of this movie is doable, and then the last part of this movie is also like, all right, I can see some of what they're getting at, but it's just that second, like, middle bit that's just like, what are we doing? Why do I care?
Yeah, and I think they would have been better off not doing the whole twist at the end and just having Marky Mark, stay on this planet.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think had things been left there, this movie would be a million times less stupid. I think because they tried to mirror the ending of the original novel while also remaining with what they had set up in their own version, I think they really screwed the pooch. Ooh, that's a good moment. That's a really good moment.
Ultimately, I think that's why you don't need the chimp coming back at the end of the movie. I would have rather the fight taking them all inside the ship, and that's where Michael Clark Duncan realizes the truth, and then Marky Mark wouldn't have been able to go back to Earth and have that stupid plot twist because there wouldn't have been a pod for him to go back in. It's got to be a weird situation, being an intelligent ape from this planet and like taking care of a primitive ape.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that's how fucking Ulysses felt taking care of Nova in the original novel.
Well, can you imagine if one of us went back in time and had to care for like a fucking Australopithecus or something? Like,
why would we feel motivated to do this? Why wouldn't we just be like, fuck this?
Or, you know what, maybe something that looks a bit human. So maybe a Neanderthal baby or something. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be...
Yeah, well,
weird...
if we just had to take care of, like, a Neanderthal orphan, yeah, no, I mean, that would be hard. I mean, I presume if you raised it from birth, though, you could probably get it to an intelligence level where it would pretty much just be just like a slower dude, you know?
Yeah.
But if it was older, it'd be a problem. But if it was like a couple months old, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal. It would just be like a dumb kid.
That would be interesting. We need to clone some Neanderthal so we can find out just how smart
That's
they
not
really
a bad idea for like a comic book character, like a character who's like a clone Neanderthal from birth and he's raised by normal people and they try to make him think he's normal, but he's not. He's a Neanderthal. Ah! It's too detailed in this version. There was like a weird sucking. It wasn't like just like a nice little... It was like this weird like, you know? It was too much.
So she seems way too into it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was it.
Which I guess in this universe where an orangutan can fuck a chimp, like, I guess they're pretty loose with that sort of thing. But it's sort of bestiality from our perspective. And she's way into it, unlike Zira in the first movie, you know? You're so damn ugly.
I like how Paul Giamatti's characters end as well, where he's like, I'm just gonna sell stuff to the humans now. That's great.
Like, I think they should have reincorporated that line from the first movie and had her say, "But you're so damn ugly," and then it would have been okay, you know.
I just
Like,
don't.
we
I just
forgot-
don't get a sense of what she's about, or this girl at all. All the women in this movie suck.
Because the few times in this movie that they've reappropriated lines from the original film, it's been great. Like we missed it earlier because I think we were talking about something else. But I really love the bit at the beginning when Marky Mark gets captured and Michael Clark Duncan says, take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty human." That was great.
That was all right. Yeah, that was
and
a
the other
not
thing-
bad reference. It's a little. I don't like that so much. I also don't really like when they reference that in Rise. It's okay.
But then the other one is, of course, Chimp Heston's dying words being fucking goddamn them all to hell.
I like that better. I think that works better, especially just in context. Oh boy, here we go. Tampon away. I do like that he just shoots for Earth as opposed to like he tries to go back in time to before the ship crashed. Because that would just be too weird then.
As an antisocial person, I often felt that way in school. You know, some kid would like offer a lighthearted pat on the back, and I'd be like, "Take your stinking paws off me,
I
damn
see.
dirty human."
I see. You were a well-adjusted boy, I see. Oh, we didn't get to see what the year was earlier.
It looks like 26 something.
Okay, so is the idea here that the apes on Earth rose up before the apes did out in space? Because he still went back in time. It's not like he went forward.
It may be that the ape uprising took place while him and the other researchers were off in space. We don't know how long they were out. And when you take into account, you know, faster than light travel.
I mean, they all went into wormholes, so that's totally believable. He traveled forward in time. He traveled backwards in time. I can't even remember when exactly what point he traveled to.
Yeah. I think that's a bit of confusion on the movie's part. I don't think they should have showed him going back in time because that kind of confuses the plot point. It would have been better if he just went back to the Earth of 26 whatever.
Yeah.
Like Yuli's.
Yeah, realistically, he should have just kept moving forward. But it's not like, you know, it's not like the Yuli's thing where it's just a matter of the time travel. He went through a wormhole. He went through a portal. But it doesn't matter because this world would have been rebuilt. You know, like it's our present day just having been built by the apes. I just think what doesn't work about this ending is that it's just too much about the shocking imagery and not enough about what everything actually means. You know, like, okay, so it's we're trying to do this play on the original where it's another iconic landmark.
This right here is
yeah,
really,
it's just the dumb imagery of this that really doesn't work.
I guess it could have been worse. He could have landed like in New York and seen an ape Statue of Liberty, although maybe that would have been a better reference to the original.
Yeah, but it's these words that really like make you go, what? General Thade. It's like we know it's the same guy now. It's like, well, how did he get there? This is the part from the original book that works fine. This is all really cool. I liked this in particular when I was a kid as well. This fascinated me.
I think you improve this ending 1,000,000% if the ape in there isn't General Thade, because that just doesn't make any sense. He just sees an ape where Abraham Lincoln should be.
That would have been totally fine.
And you know what? And now that I've read the book, this ending doesn't even bother me as much as it used to. It's just the Thade thing that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. I'm totally with you. Yeah. Totally with you. It's not terrible. It's just doesn't line up. It just doesn't totally make sense.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe we did it.
But that was Planet of the Apes 2001. Ultimately, my stance on it hasn't changed.
His name was Leo Davidson. His name was Leo.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, my stance on it is the same as it was going in. I think it's a mixed bag. but there are things in it that I like, that I cling to whenever we're watching it.
I liked it a little more this time around, actually. I think it's more of a mixed bag proper this time around than I did in the past. Like I think the good ideas work better than I maybe gave them credit for, and I think that overall it's better paced than I remembered. Mm-hmm. But it's still just as generic as I remember, and that's just the thing that kills it. This could be any 90s action movie, you know? And that's just unfortunate. I wish it was more distinct and more unique. It had every reason to be. It had every right to be. It should have been. But any movie that Fox would have made with the record of them trying to make these things at this time, it would have been bad, right? I mean, it was destined to be bad. Look at Terminator 3 around this time. Fox was not in a good place, except with their X-Men movies. That was all they were doing that was good.
I would argue that I think I get a little bit more enjoyment out of Terminator 3 than even this. That movie is so fucking fun.
I think Terminator 3 is better than this. Yeah, sure, without question. Without question. But I think this is a fraction better than I remember it. I think I don't think it matters though. Like that's the thing that I just will always it's this ambivalence I will always have for this movie. Like it has nothing to do with the original movie. It has no bearing on it. The fact that I don't like it it doesn't need to exist. I don't never have to see it again. And I think if you're trying to get a feel for the franchise and what it's about, you don't have to watch this. You can just watch the original movie and that's it. Like you don't have to watch all the sequels to it unless you want to. And if you're going to watch all the sequels to the original movie and you're going to be a completionist, I mean, I would definitely say it's definitely worth giving a go. It's worth seeing the different directions and everything. It's worth seeing what they take from the original book. But
well, yeah, I would argue that if you are a fan of these movies and maybe you haven't seen this one because of its reputation, definitely give it a watch because there are some things in it that I think you can appreciate, like the best damn makeup effects in the franchise. Honestly, that's the one thing this movie has that is better than anything else in the franchise.
I don't know if that's enough to get you through it, though.
A good score by Danny Elfman, a different take on the universe. I would recommend, though, that if you haven't seen this movie before and you're interested, read the book first, because first of all, it will give you some perspective on a lot of the plot points that were used in the original franchise, but you'll also pick out a few things in this film that were clearly taken from the original novel.
Yeah. I would definitely agree, but I think if you're just trying to get like a vague feel for how this franchise is supposed to work, you know, just getting into the new ones, I think the first one is all you need to watch. Like, just watch the original and then you're good. And read the Pierre Boulle novel as well.
Well, I would say at least, I wouldn't say just the first one. I would say the original 5 films, at least the first 4, because there are elements of all of them that have been recycled in the new franchise.
I think reading the Pierre Boulle novel will make you want to watch them all anyway. So but I think just you need to have those 2 in the bag to really be considered, you know, properly educated about Apes. I feel if anybody's judging that sort of thing. But I think at the end of the day that this is worse than Ghostbusters 2. I can see an argument for it not being, but I would rather watch Ghostbusters 2 than this on any day. I think Ghostbusters 2 is just, you know, it's a movie that I enjoy watching, and this I think is too boring most of the time to elevate it above that level to be a movie that I'll ever put in again, you know? I just think when it comes to rewatchability, this is one of the lesser ones. I just nothing about it makes me feel like, oh, I have to get back into that to really get a feel for. I just don't care, you know? But anyway, so I think we've said our piece about this, bro. How did it do, like, financially? Like, did it do well at the time? It wasn't well received, that's for sure.
It wasn't critically well received, but I'm pretty sure it did make its money back. Let me pull the Wikipedia article back up real quick and see what it says about the performance of the movie.
There were comic books that were made around the time that are set in this version of the universe, I'm pretty sure, which is interesting.
I remember reading one when I was young. I don't remember what it was about.
Yeah, I can't... This is definitely very self-contained. I can't imagine... It must have been like a prequel, I would imagine.
Honestly, nobody would ever do it because of how badly this movie was received. But I wouldn't mind seeing more comics of this version of the universe because I think it is an interesting version of the universe that's worth telling better stories in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I wish they would have done something with it in that anthology series we read, but I don't know. I don't know what specifically you would do though. So you got to figure that out first, obviously.
This movie also had an amazing toy line with it. I think I still have my fucking figure of Michael Clark Duncan's character from this movie, and it's just so fucking well detailed and everything. Let's see. Oh yeah, it says right here, Dark Horse Comics published a comic book adaptation. See here. It was the second highest opening weekend of 2001 behind Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, if you're only familiar with the English version, or the American version, I should say. Its opening weekend was $68 million and some change, and by the time it was all said and done, it grossed $180 million, 11,740.
What was What was its budget?
Oh, that was just in North America, the $180 million. It grossed an additional $182,200,000 elsewhere for a worldwide total of $362,211,000.
What was it, like a $120 million movie?
Probably something like that, yeah.
It should say it. It should say the production budget. We're not going to figure out if that was good unless we know what the budget was. If it was over $150 million, that's not that great.
That's what I'm trying to find here.
I can't imagine this was over $150 million, though. It's got to be like 120.
Hold on, let me just Google budget.
Maybe even less than that.
It was made for $100 million.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a success, man. That's about as successful as Peter Jackson's King Kong, if not more so.
It made back 3 times its budget.
Yeah. So the only reason they didn't make another one was because they just didn't. They knew that people didn't like it.
I think it was a combination of that, and again, apparently Tim Burton did not like it at all.
Yeah, I don't think he got along with the producers. I think that's why it feels so generic. It's like it's a really sanitized Hollywood version of Tim Burton's version of Planet of the Apes.
Shit. I was right.
What?
Kroll, which is the good gorilla from this movie, was played by Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa.
Well, there you go. Whoever the hell that is, certainly Asian, so that works.
Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, he is known mostly for playing Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie and for co-starring with Dolph Lundgren in an 80s action movie that I can't remember the title of.
Well, great.
But they play it on Shaun in Little Tokyo. That's what it's called. I feel like it was probably trying to cash in on the success of Big Trouble in Little China, but I don't know that for sure because I haven't seen it. Oh, apparently he was in License to Kill as well. I don't remember him in that, but I believe it.
I think I know who he was. He was I think he was the Chinese Secret Service, or Japanese maybe. I cannot remember which government he worked for. He was an undercover assassin or whatever who tried to kill Bond.
In real life, I'm pretty sure he's Japanese.
Okay, so I think it was Japanese in the movie as well. I probably just fucked up my memory of that because I'm an idiot. And it's late. So that being said, Dylan, let's wrap this up, shall we? So that's Planet of the Apes 2001. Whew, we knocked out the only really bad movie that I think we were going to have to discuss, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would this time around, so that's something.
Holy shit. And the fat orangutan with the frills, the one that was fucking the chimpanzee woman, is the fat guy from Beetlejuice. You know, when you look at the cast list for this movie and you see who these people are out of the makeup, this is a pretty good cast.
I cannot disagree with you. Disagree with you.
Anyway,
whoever played that little girl chimpanzee, perfect. Anyway, so Dylan, let's wrap this up, shall we? So next time we're getting back to the really good ones, and we're getting back in with the other attempted reimagining of the Planet of the Apes franchise. In 2009, when Fox decided to go for a more grounded approach, take a more kind of Chris Nolan Batman approach with the Planet of the Apes franchise, with Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So that'll be day 7 of Talking Apes. We hope you'll join us.
Featuring an actor who can be very controversial in that a lot of people don't like him most of the time. And
John Lithgow.
No, good old James Franco, who recently gave the best performance of his life in Alien Covenant. Best because it was mercifully short.
And and we watched him die brutally.
Yeah, that was the first thing we saw of him. I didn't even realize he was supposed to be in that movie until she was watching
Me neither.
I
had forgotten. Yeah.
Which, what a ripoff from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, by the way, when Gary Oldman was watching his family videos.
Yeah, it's the same shit.
And crying. Yeah. Now that I've segued us back to Planet of the Apes, let's end this fucking video.
Yeah. So we hope you'll join us for our commentary on Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Surely, lots of interesting things to be said. One of my favorite modern science fiction films, and one of the best reboots to a franchise in my memory. So, can't wait to talk about it. We hope you'll join us. See you tomorrow, kids. Until then, I'm Bill Worster, aka Zazubaar.
And I'm Super DM64.
And it's a madhouse! A madhouse!
God damn you all, man!